Hello and welcome everyone. It's time for another exciting episode of IT Career in Australia channel. And tonight's topic is building trust with leadership for career fulfillment in tech. So thank you for taking some time to join me this evening. Please, as usual, don't forget to introduce yourselves in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversations with your questions and comments, or at least say hi in the comments so you know you're here, because it's nice for me to know that you're here and you're listening. I'm Jana Martins, if you forgot, and I'm currently working in IT consultancy. So I'm passionate about learning more about present and future of the tech industry, and always eager to share my findings with you on this YouTube channel. Again, tonight we're going to talk about building trust with leadership to fulfill your tech career. And Andrew is going to share his experience, his insights, his stories, and his career progressions, and also a lot of tips about building trust and improving your communication skills to build trust. So before I'll pass it over to Andrew to introduce himself, just want to quickly remind you, as usual, we're streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you miss our stream, no worries. You can always watch the replays by subscribing to my YouTube channel. And I go live there every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, with various experts from my network talking about broad range of topics around IT career, job search, and in and outs of IT industry in Australia. Obviously, encourage you to join my meetup group. I start running some face-to-face events. So if you're in Melbourne, please keep an eye. We had the exciting event last Saturday, and I'm going to schedule probably one in November. So if you want to actually go and network with people, encourage you to ask as many questions as you want, but please just stay on the topic. Some people saying hi. Said here, thank you for saying hi. Namisha's here. IT professional, thank you guys. Please, make sure to put your names and highs in the comments. So we know that you're here and you're listening. And that's probably enough of me. I'm just going to pass it on to Andrew to introduce himself, please.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Andrew Bauer, Chief of Intelligence and Director at Calibrate Systems. I actually have run multiple businesses. You would have noticed that we were advertised as CIO on Call, which was one of my ventures that has now finished and wound up. I've been in the industry for over 25 years. Started off doing software development across, I think I counted about 18 or something different coding languages and styles. Over the time, I then built out a software development house, then shifted across into solutions architecture and enterprise architecture, and then into interim and virtual chief information officer. And yeah, I've got a few different ventures from there. So spent a lot of time in the tech industry and built a reputation for being a fixer when it came to software. Basically, when nobody else could solve the problem, they'd just come and bring it to me, and I would be the person of last resort.
Perfect. Sounds good. We all like these people that can fix the problems. We always need one in each organization. Dan is here saying hi. Very interesting topic. Thank you, Dan. Okay, so let's, I guess, dive into it. I think before we talk about, building trust, maybe let's define what is trust and what is trust in the tech leadership context as well. So, what is for you?
For me, if I bring trust back to just standard relationships, then trust is the belief that the other person's going to hear, understand, appreciate, and recognize what I've said, and that it's going to go both ways. For me, trust is mostly about communication, but there's also an element of integrity and follow through. That's what builds trust. In the tech industry, I found trust looks a little bit different, especially with business people, because the amount of information, the amount of stuff we need to understand as a technical professional, we can't always communicate that with a business person. So therefore, trust gets built when we understand their world, not necessarily when they understand ours. And as we understand their world better, they start to ask more questions about tech regarding their world and what they're dealing with. And that's how trust, I find, tends to work within the tech industry.
Interesting. So it's all about understanding something from the person perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, I'm just, I think it was a Brené Brown book. I don't remember exactly which book it was, but it was something about trust around those little things that we remember about people. So, if you remember, for example, people's kids' name, yeah, or people's parents' name, those little things that we remember about people actually help us to build trust quicker. Like if you meet someone's event and you're asking like, oh, how is such and such going, how is Mr. and Mrs. Smith going, or how is your kids going, that builds trust much quicker than talking about anything technical or anything anything business related. So I don't know, how do you connect those two concepts, personal and business?
I think I remember that book. It was the one she was talking with her daughter about the marbles.
I think so. Yes.
Yes. I think that's building. That's demonstrating. How would I put it? It's leading with the intention of reciprocity. So being able giving without the expectation of something immediately coming back. So doing something with a good heart. From a text perspective, because technology doesn't exist on its own. It's usually to do with information, and it actually used to be information, communication, and technology, and then it keeps getting shortened down to technology. So because it's mostly about information and communication, that's why understanding is a big part of it. Well, that's my experience. Most of the time when someone comes to me, it's like, oh, how do I solve this problem? And this problem is usually tracking something across a business. So yeah, there's the reciprocity is in giving, being able to go, okay, yep, here's the information you need, here's more. And what happens over time is they keep coming back and creating opportunities for the tech person.
Yeah. Said is on your side from the trust.
I like Dan's one as well. Yeah.
Capability and plus loyalty.
I think that speaks probably closer to what you were saying than mine.
Okay, so what about okay, so there's a lot of this understanding other person, the concept of reciprocity, but can you maybe share some specific examples on maybe your career where that trust building helped you to positively impact your career, or maybe, career of others around you?
Sure. The best one I can think of is I used to work for a debt collection agency when I was an employee, and they had an issue where they had to the head director, who owned most of the business, had to forcefully remove a bunch of directors. And that's a very vulnerable position to be in. He came to myself and one of the other guys and said, need your help to sort out the systems. We need to lock them out. And myself and the other gentleman, we looked at it and went, it's no different to another employee being removed. So we just didn't get involved in the politics of it all and just got in amongst it. So the other guy was dealing with the standard administration, and I went straight into the system because one of the directors had left out a key piece to do invoicing so that it would rely on him, feeling like he would be protected because of that. We had 2 weeks to get invoicing out on time. It took me 3 weeks, which they were happy with because a week late on invoicing is not a big deal. But I basically just headfirst dug into it and had to reverse engineer a whole system and then fix it past the point of one person being able to do it, but more a standard office clerk being able to finish it. And that built trust with that director. So when it came time for me to leave, because I was in Brisbane at the time and I decided to move to Melbourne on a whim, he went above and beyond to support me with that. Made sure it was the right thing for me. And when I went to leave, he said, don't quit, take unpaid leave, because at least then you've got something to come back on. And that giving, even though it was kind of expected, it was because it was my job. Since I got in and did it and got him out of a bind, they were going through, what do you call it? It wasn't a lawsuit, mitigation. They're going through mitigation elements, and this was one of the leveraging points that was being trying to use to get money out. And because I was able to solve it, it saved him a lot in the long run.
Yeah. So would you say, like in this kind of context, the trust is ability to rely on someone? So like if your leadership trusts you, they trust that if they in trouble, you will be the person who can, come and support them.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. So being trustworthy is being reliable. And this is, for me, where integrity comes in, because it's, if I say I'll do something, then I will deliver on that, and therefore I can be relied on. If I find out I can't do it, well, then I go back and have a conversation about, well, sorry, these were things that I missed in the instance. This is now what we need to do to solve for that. And what it means is that they're relying on me to continually keep them up to date of it.
Yeah. But I guess, okay, so, but on that one side, it's also, making sure you get your, you deliver your job and get your, solve the problem. What, I guess, the other things comes to, some strategy comes when you want to build that trust, establishes trust with the teams and colleagues. Because, yeah, I understand the one part is making sure you deliver, making sure you help when you need to help. But what other things comes into that trust building? Yeah, because it would be that simple if we all need just do our job and then to build trust. But obviously there is more to it than just being reliable and get things done.
True. There's an element of going further than what's expected. And the way that I've been able to do this, and this probably answers the question that was asked around career fulfillment a bit as well, by not just doing stuff within the tech world, but going and understanding, say, how the business operates, as in what are the processes, how do they flow? If I'm working on a solution within this area of accountability, well, where does that fit within the other areas, and how does it flow in and out of the those processes? It means that when I'm working with the business, they're like, oh, wow, you've thought of something further than we didn't even think of it for ourselves. And that builds a whole nother level of trust. And what it means is that instead of the business coming to me saying, we want this solution, they would actually come to me and say, I've got this problem. And therefore now I have the actual space to help them find the solution and to actually spend time doing even more strategy with them. And I found that very fulfilling for myself. So it was strategic to do that. And I also then got to do even more strategy because of it.
So basically, when you build that trust with the leadership, they trust you to make the decisions and give you more authority. And I guess that's what leads to more career fulfillment.
Yeah, they trust you with the input.
Yeah.
So instead of coming through saying, oh, do this, and there's only trust to do the job, there becomes more trust around having a say and being able to participate in how things go.
Yeah, I guess Nimisha has a similar question. Can we define what is career fulfillment in this context, and how leadership trust on us will help us achieve it? So we kind of just start touching on that.
Yeah, I believe so. And unless there's something we've missed on that, that's my personal belief of it. It's going a little bit going further than tech into the business world, because the more I understand the people that I'm being of service to, the more they feel like I am someone that they can rely on. As Den says about compatibility, it increases compatibility, and then automatically builds that loyalty too, because they're like, oh, you're the person I can talk to. I know that when I say something, you're going to listen to me.
Yeah. And I think the career fulfillment, coming back to Nimisha's question, it's you can't really define it, I think, same for everyone, because career fulfillment for someone may be, having the career progression every year, but for someone maybe career fulfillment is just making sure they have, like, I don't know, one task that they can code on and just no one through any other task at the same time. So career fulfillment could be quite a different things for different, and mean different things for different people. For some people, the more challenges, can create more career fulfillment. For some people, just leave me alone and let me work on this problem.
That's
so
true.
I think that could be quite subjective here.
There is that. And just to speak a little bit to that, then, if we build trust with leadership, it means that they're willing to listen back to us. So therefore, if we're the type of person's like, I only like to code on one thing at a time and I want it as a big project and this is what I'm doing, then being able to be relied on to fulfill on that and to solve problems means that we can go to leadership and say, this is how I want to work. And then they're like, okay, well, let's just make that work. And then they'll use other people in the team to do the other roles that are necessary. So that element of being reliable and having the ability to communicate with leadership means that we then can ask for what we want and how we want to be treated.
And I think that's a great point, Andrew, because sometimes people just don't think about that element, that if we understand people more, they can understand us more. And then you have this opportunity to ask what you want, because sometimes we just think about how we fit in our position, how we fit in our role, instead of coming to leadership and saying, like, I'll build the trust, I show you that I'm capable to do these things. That's what I actually want to do the most. And that helps us to build that, career fulfillment.
Well, I know for myself, when I build teams, I'm interested in what works best for the team, but being able to align that with the goals that the business has and the way we want to go. Because if I have someone who's working against how they naturally operate, it takes a lot more effort for them. It requires a lot more effort for me to work with them on that because it's against their natural. Whereas if I know how they naturally operate, then I know that they're reliable to deliver on in a certain way, then that's trust. I can go, okay, cool, I can trust you to do that. My requirements are you come and talk to me at these intervals, and also that I always have a requirement of everyone in my team must be asking questions. If you have something you see and you must ask a question on it, you must raise it, you must talk about it, because otherwise I don't know. I can't read your mind. So those are my simple requirements. And then my team trusts that when they come to me and raise a question, I'm not going to shut them down because I asked for it. And if I ever do, I even tell them that if you ever find me shutting you down, call me out on it. So this is how I set my team up to be able to talk to me and work with me.
Definitely. And I think it's kind of brings us to another point, that a lot of trust building depends on the communication skills. Yes, there is obviously actions talk for themselves, but a lot of this, it's about how we communicate with people and how we try to understand people and how we listen to people. And I think you have a few points here about it as well.
It's I always find with communication, and as the slide says, the biggest inefficiency in business is miscommunication. People not understanding what we mean. Communication is about shared meaning, and this can get overlooked at times. And I find it gets actually overlooked quite a bit, but not intentionally.
Yeah, and I think there's a good point here as well.
Oh, this one's good. My mum had this above the kitchen table when we were young. So I know you think you heard what I said, but is what you heard what I meant? And what was interesting is when I was young, I used to look at this and go, well, I like that, but how do I also know what the other person meant? I've got to be responsible for my side and make sure that when someone's talking about something, I don't just assume. There you go. If I'm to be responsible for my own listening, then how can I make sure that I not only heard the words, but rather understood what was meant by those words? So for me, I'm always very mindful of not just hearing what somebody said, but also that I have got to the core meaning, because then they actually feel heard. There was I used to remember in US military stuff, they call out hoorah. I don't know if it actually stands for this, but I like this. I put it now as heard, understood, recognized, and appreciated. And I don't stop until the other person experiences that.
I think we get into I'm just looking at the comments. There's quite a few comments here. Mohammed is saying, "I hope to see some meaningful insights for career success, fulfillment, and growth as well." And Nimisha is saying back to what we're actually discussing right now. Andrew mentioned communication is a key part of the trust building. Any inputs or suggestions on the ways to improve your communication skills? So I
Sure.
think the one thing that you just mentioned, it's about that listening piece and actually listening not just to respond, but listening to understand.
Yes.
And what would be the next one?
Okay. Just to speak a little bit more to that, a lot of people talk about active listening. I prefer collaborative listening as a concept. Because as you said, some people listen to respond, and that's a kind of activeness. But listening to respond is basically waiting for a gap to be able to say something, and it has a hint of arrogance to it. It's like what I have to say is the most important thing. The other type of listening that can show up is listening to move on, as in you can see when someone's checked out of the conversation, all they're doing is waiting to chuck something in there and get out. And the final one I've heard other than those two negative ones is listening for your own benefit, but never sharing back the other way. So it's not really collaborative listening. It's listening and assuming you've heard what the other person meant and going, yep, thank you very much, and leave. Whereas collaborative listening is, as someone's speaking to me, I will share my understanding of it back to them to make sure that I've heard them correctly and I've got to the meaning. And as I'm listening, if things aren't quite making sense, then I will formulate questions to help improve my understanding further and allow the person to adjust the meaning that I'm making on my side and being very aware that I'm making a meaning. And that's not a good or bad thing. It's just what it is. But I just got to be very mindful that the meaning I'm making needs to be in alignment with theirs to be able to fully understand what they're trying to say.
Definitely. And often it's, we all know that it's not only the words that we're saying, it's also how we're saying it. The tone of voice, the intonation and everything brings a meaning as well. And for different people, that can bring different meaning as well. So we think that we sounded, I don't know, calm and and approachable, but it's not always other person will perceive us this way. And also different people can react on a different intonation differently as well. And there is a cultural difference on top of that. So there is so many shades of the communication, and so many different meanings. Could be the same sentence means so many things, unless you, as you said, like listen to understand and ask the clarifying questions. You might take a completely different meaning from this conversation.
Just to go back to Mohammed's point around career success and growth, we don't ever grow on our own. We actually need other people to be able to succeed and to go further. So I don't know about everyone else in tech, but when I was initially going through tech, I used to do it in a silo. And I would get results, but I'd do it on my own. And I would only went so far until I realized that I needed other people to go to be able to succeed any further. And this is why communication is so critical for growth and success in any industry, but especially with tech. Because if we're not understanding other people, if we're not able to work with them, and so that they actually feel great to be around us, then our success will be limited.
Definitely. And I think that also that concept of asking for help comes in here as well. I think I'm coming back to Brené Brown again when I'm talking about it, when she said that it's one of the courages that we have, it's actually asking for help. And if we ask for help, then it also opens the doors for other people to ask us for help. And let's create this reciprocity again. So breaking this silence and help people, but also be able to ask for help, that the people can ask for help back.
Yeah, because if we're constantly giving, some people don't feel like they feel like it's too much to ask even more. So when we ask for help, we show people that we're open for their input, and that we actually believe that what they have to say matters. And as you said, it creates reciprocity. It also is very what was the word? Not authentic, vulnerable. Very vulnerable thing to do, and um, people understand and appreciate vulnerability, and that in its own right builds trust as well.
And we usually trust people more when we help them as well.
Yeah, I think they call that the Benjamin Franklin effect. There was one thing where Benjamin Franklin was a lawyer or something, and he was up against this person that most people couldn't break. And he went and found out what this person absolutely loves and then asks to borrow the book on it. And as soon as this gentleman lent the book, he automatically opened up to Benjamin Franklin. So it's known as the Benjamin Franklin effect.
There you go. Yes, yeah. So that's that's one of the, I think that's one of the ways to build trust for sure. Like just asking for help, but as you gave that example, asking for help on the things that people passionate about as well. That creates even this like a double effect, because if you ask for help for something irrelevant, then the person can maybe just won't be able to help you, and that won't create that extra connection. But that's a perfect example.
Yep.
Of, again, finding out about the person, being interested in the person, and asking for the help in the area that the person is actually expert in.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at the next comments.
We have quite a few questions. Yeah. Regina is saying, hi, Andrew. I'm currently working on a project related to cloud computing, and it may involve sensitive data and security issues. How do you think leaders can build trust in these areas, ensure that teams' job satisfaction as well?
Okay. There's probably two ways I can take this question, so I'll try and answer both. Because it's either that you're a leader yourself and trying to build with your team, or that you're a team member trying to build trust with the leaders. And if you're in tech as a team leader, that's a whole nother matter in comparison to a business team leader. So let me see if I can answer all three of those actually in one foul swoop. From a team's perspective, with leadership, when it comes to tech leadership, show your understanding and go deep into what would it take to actually deliver on especially security in that measure. What are the different things that you have to think about? There's always different situations and circumstances, and then there's a whole bunch of technical requirements to fulfill on those. The more you go into that and learn that, the more that people start to trust you, because then you have the knowledge and the expertise that they must rely on. So you need to become an expert. Is probably the best way to say it as a technician. If you're a team leader in tech, then what you're wanting to do is create opportunities for your team to become those experts. As a team leader, you don't need to be an expert. You need to create opportunities and back your team to be those experts. And then what you do is you have a look at the situation scenarios that you can think of, and make sure the team has considered those purely by asking questions. You don't tell. In a leadership role, you ask questions. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? How are we handling this? How are we handling that? And that way the team stops and thinks about it for themselves and builds that out. If you're a business team leader, it's basically the same sort of type of thing as the tech one, but you're obviously not going to have a lot of tech background to understand what questions to ask. So a default question to fall back on with tech people is, what questions haven't I been asking? What haven't I thought about? This actually forces a tech person to think it through in a different way and answer it in a different way as well.
Definitely. And also, Andrew, do you think that it's easier to build trust in person than in the virtual world? You know, like obviously we have a lot of teams now, they remote, everyone working from their own home office. Do you think it's make it harder to build that trust? and maybe ask some of these questions?
There's a couple of ways to answer that one as well. I like the question.
Because when you sit in the office with someone, you ask these questions. I'm just I'm giving you time to think.
No, I had an answer. I just had to feel through how to say it.
Yeah.
The first thing to answer is it's easier to destroy trust with remote work. Like if we haven't asked enough questions up front to make sure we're heading in the right direction, then we could, especially for instance, I used to hire developers in Ukraine before the war. So being in Australia, and then you got Ukrainian, completely different time zones. So if they've spent 12 hours working on something and heading in the wrong direction, if you don't have the right leader who recognizes that, oh, hang on, that's partly my fault, then what happens is trust gets destroyed in the process. So this is why, as a technical person, we must be asking questions. And it's not, or what do I do next? What type of tech do I implement? No, that's your job. It's understanding the business better and understanding the situations and scenarios that the business is dealing with so that you work out how to apply tech properly. So those deep questions is what helps in a remote environment to make sure trust is maintained at the very least. And how far you go into the business world is how you then continue to build that up. So there's definitely opportunities to build trust from a remote perspective, the same as when you're personal and face-to-face. You just must capitalize on them. When you have that time, you must be asking questions. If you're afraid, if you have emotions coming up, put them aside, ask the questions. And if you're in an environment where it's not okay to ask questions, consider if you're in the right environment. It's okay to actually walk away from a job if it's not actually setting up what you need, because otherwise you're the one that's going to be basically blamed for this, because the business world doesn't understand tech unless it is an actual tech business.
And I guess we're talking about that remote, again, the remote situation. Obviously, we're trying to ask these questions when we have a chance. But do you think it's also important, if you work remotely, book those meetings when you just not talk about work, and book the meeting just to connect with people? What is your opinion on this? Like everyone trying to do like this, I don't know, social drink hour or something, when, I don't know, a lunch and learn where people can just get together and talk about stuff. So do you think that that's important bit, or it just really depends on the situation and the culture?
I would go, it more depends on the situation, the culture, and yourself. It's similar to fulfillment. It's all subjective. I know some people that their realm of socialization isn't over the top that much, but they can work extremely well. They love their job, they love exactly how they are, and they've just learned how to ask for what they need, and it's solid. Whereas if you're the type of person that requires some sort of social connection, then again, you need to be asking for that. And if you are remote, then these types of things are very useful. I know for myself, I'm an extrovert. I must be around people, otherwise I go weird. But I make sure that I handle that. Being a team leader makes it even easier for me than it would for standard for a team member, because most team members are in getting their job done. Whereas for me, I have to be talking with every team member to know where they're at and what's going on at any point in time. So I fulfill my need of connection through that. And because I know that's important to me, I just make sure that that's opportunity is there for everyone in the team if they need that. So you got to know what you need and ask for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, for some people that social hour is really important, but some people, they can just basically concentrate on the program or on the work they're doing. And then actually have kind of similar question. Trust on a job and trust in general, what's the difference for you? I guess we touch on a little bit about it and talking about that, social events, and maybe get your team members just to talk about their personal life a little bit. But yeah, what's the difference for you, Andrew, personally? Do you think there's a difference?
I think there is for some people. For me, there's not. But that's because I'm a serial entrepreneur. So for me, I don't have such thing as work-life balance. I've got work-life integration. So for me, work is nothing more than an expression of who I am. So therefore, trust for me goes across everything, regardless. But I can understand for other people that that may not be their natural expression. So therefore, work is something that they feel fulfilled in, but it's not as in fulfilled as a job. But it's not fulfilling for them as a uh, what would you call it? Soul expression, personal expression. They may have fulfillment as family. So your that type of trust is two different things. I can be relied on with work at any given point in time because it is an expression for me. Like the 9 to 5 notion doesn't exist for me because I don't know I'll work on a weekend, but on a Wednesday I'm at the movies because I just move stuff around to make it work for me. So that's a different type of trust. Whereas for somebody else who doesn't do that, the trust is all right between these hours. I'm absolutely available because that's what you're paying for, and then there may be under extenuating circumstances you can rely on me, but my family is my most important thing, and if that comes up, then I'm sorry, work comes second best. And that's also a level of trust. Like if I know that's the case for someone, I can trust that. I can rely on it. And if family comes up for you, I know that you will be here 100% if family's not a problem. Because for you, this job facilitates your family. And me knowing that goes, cool, okay. You have a family issue that's come up, fair enough. As long as it's not a consistent thing of you always got problems showing up in your family, I would turn around and go, all right, what do you need? Because I know that in the future, when I need something and it's not going to overly impact your family, you'd make sure to reciprocate.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it's coming back to that value system as well. So it's understanding other person and understanding what's important for them.
Yeah, I agree.
And
100%.
not assuming that what's important for you is important for another person. I think it's I think it's probably the basic for any communication. If we understand the other person's values and understand how we can communicate within their values, that's probably the successful trust building straight away.
Absolutely. And we've just cycled back to understanding and meaning and communication. And it's all the foundation of building out a relationship. And then relationships are built on this stuff over time, which gives you trust.
Yeah, and that's I think probably for someone, trust in job and trust in general could be different things, but as I guess we discussed, it's probably still interconnected in a certain way.
Yep.
I think Dan has additional question to this. Do you think that really matters to leadership?
What do you think really matters to leadership? Depends on the leader. I can only really speak for myself. I'm a purpose-driven and mission-driven leader. So for me, what matters to me is the purpose, the mission, what we're up for, and then how do I have everything align to facilitate the purpose and mission driving forwards. Other leaders, I probably wouldn't label them as leaders. They may be more managers. For them, it's more the bottom line, the dollar value. So for them, it's whatever's going to be the cheapest and get them the most amount of profit. Personally, those types of leaders don't last around me. I tend to annoy the hell out of them. But yeah, it comes down to the leader. I think what you said, Jana, before about values, that's going to be critical regardless of who you are. Because if you think about it, we all lead our own lives. So therefore, we're all leaders in its own right. And then it comes down to what do we value personally, and what are our agendas based on that value. That's what we're heading towards. And when we align for ourselves, when we align our agendas with the agendas of the people that are going in the direction we want to go, then we're in unison and we're heading in the same direction.
Yeah, perfect. So I think here we go. That's another question. It's looked like you need to trust the person completely, not just at the job, right?
Yes and no. because if I know someone's a narcissist, I can trust that they're a narcissist, and it means that it's trusting what their true intentions are and being able to read that. So if I know someone's narcissistic, then I can trust that and I can keep my distance. If I know that someone is they're passionate and determined, but they struggle to communicate, then I can trust that and I can spend a little bit more time to understand what they truly mean. So it's being able to feel past the surface level to understand what someone's intentions.
I almost feel like it could be vice versa. So it could be some people we trust them in just in real life, but we might not trust them at the job.
Can be. Again, it comes down to agendas after that. So you got to intentions form into agenda.
So I think there's like various different scenarios there. So I think we go a bit philosophical if we think about this. But I feel like definitely have people I would trust at job and don't trust in life, or trust in life and don't trust in jobs. I think is definitely could be various scenarios there. Coming back to that intentions, values, and other things.
Absolutely. James, I agree with you 100%. Hence the air quotes.
The profit driven is not the leader. I want to just come back to that. I guess to Nimisha question. Coming back to this, like real life example on how your trust lead to your career growth and fulfillment. I think we mentioned a few just before. But Andrew, can you have any other examples of I don't know, your career or someone's your career again that trust build the next career growth for them?
Sure. In mine, I always built trust with real subject matter experts. I'm very specific about real subject matter experts. So a subject matter expert is somebody who doesn't just understand a process, they understand the whole field of expertise that process sits within. Now, a business doesn't always know who they are. Sometimes they're the people that are in the corner that just get results done, and nobody wants to talk to because it challenges them to talk to, challenges most people to talk to these people. The best way to find them is if everything went pear-shaped tomorrow, who are the people cleaning it up? And these are the real subject matter experts. So what's interesting is that when everything goes pear-shaped, the business trusts them to get in and get the job done. So they've built a level of trust with the business, but it may not be one based on verbal communication, but rather communicating their ability through their capabilities. So their capability through their ability to get a result. So I would go and build trust with them by listening to them and dropping any assumption agenda that I would have, and make sure that I fully understand what they're saying. And when things don't make sense, again, ask clarifying questions. Because when I can get on the same page as them, I can see how they get the results. And now I can actually support them to get those results by applying technology after the fact. So when I spoke about making sure that I don't have any agenda, it also is I do not bring technology into any conversation until I've understood the other person, because it's a filter that we listen through, and we're not listening to the other person for what they're truly saying. So I make sure to put that filter aside, listen to what they're saying and get a deep understanding of it, then bring that back in, and it becomes a lens then instead of a filter, and we can add more through it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just really cautious about the time, Andrew. We're already like 44 minutes into our conversation. I think the last question I want to ask you as well on the trust thing. So we all know that the trust can be really fragile. Yeah. So do you have any recommendation on rebuilding trust after it has been damaged within the tech team?
That is extremely hard. When trust is damaged, depending on how bad it's damaged, it's hard to rebuild. We basically, the ones that have worked for me is one, own my misunderstanding and the mistakes that has been caused by that. Two, rectify any issues that come out of that. Basically, my misunderstanding or mistakes will cause an impact on someone. So help to rectify that impact. And three, share with everybody who got impacted what I learned from it and how it came about, and how it never happened again. That is the starting point for building trust. Again, once trust is broken, but you'll find that people are hesitant and will sit back and watch more. So there won't be as much trust, and it takes time to rebuild it, by continuing to be trustworthy and reliable.
And I guess the question would be, do you think it will take longer to rebuild the trust when they build trust in the first place?
Longer to rebuild.
Yeah, I think
Without a doubt.
everyone usually agrees on that. So it's always, it's harder to rebuild than just, establish the trust in the first place. Sometimes we can establish the trust probably really quick with people.
Yeah. It's usually when we got rapport with them, when we have some sort of commonality, we can trust. We can trust on something that we have in common to be able to get a sense of each other. So that's where it can be easy to build trust. Where we have that no commonality, it just takes time and experience and shared experience to build that out. And then when we do something that's out of alignment with what people expect, especially if it negatively impacts them, that's when we lose trust.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so we talk about a lot of different things. I guess we went to a few different directions. Talk about communication values, building trust, and rebuilding trust. So let's just try to summarize everything in the last 10 minutes of our stream. So and coming back to this career fulfillment piece as well. So if what would be your top 3 tips for someone who maybe started a new role? Started a new role in tech industry. They want to grow their career, so they have some career goals in mind. They want to build, obviously, trust with their leadership team. So what would be your top 3 tips if you summarize everything we talk about for this person who just, started a new role?
The first thing I would do is go and understand your leader's world. What are they dealing with at any point in time? They may not overly share that, but the more you can understand what they're dealing with, the more you have compassion for what they're asking for. That's the first one. The next one is ask questions. Be curiously engaged, have collaborative listening, and ask questions. Not to question people, but to understand. And then the third one is have integrity. So follow through on what you say you'll do. And if it becomes obvious that you're not going to be able to fulfill on that, go and talk to them and find out what's the impact and how it can be resolved and negotiate.
Definitely. Do you think even little things like, I don't know, making sure you have those one-on-one conversations when you're starting a new role and trying to get more time with your leadership team and trying to ask for these one-on-one conversations, do you think that's a good approach as well, or it doesn't matter?
I think it's situational and circumstantial. If your business is trying to get something done and you're trying to spend a lot of time doing one-to-one, you'll lose trust because they're like, we need to get this done. Whereas if you're have a bit more time and you're looking to understand something further, those one-to-ones become good, but come with curious questions. Don't just come to have a conversation with the person unless that's their type of personality. You're better off coming with questions, because questions allow somebody to think, perceive, and add value to you, and therefore they feel like they're adding value, which then goes back to those principles we were talking about before.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to your first point, understanding the person, understanding that everyone's different and different approach will work with different people. And as you said, some people would love to have those one-on-ones and talk about anything and everything. And some people just want to concentrate on the problem, get the things done, and they don't want to just, I don't know, talk about their family for half an hour.
Yeah, I think there's the old saying, people don't care what you know until they know you care. So finding it to be able to, for someone to feel cared for, you need to know what they care about and then show that you care about it too.
I think I
or
have it here.
at the very,
Look, I
there
even
you
have
go.
it here.
Oh, you even have said it. Nice.
From the previous conversations. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
At the very least, you may not care about something of theirs, but you can at least respect that they care about it.
Yeah, I think there's another one kind of in a similar vein. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yep.
So I just gotta, find a few quotes right there while I was looking for this one. Okay, Andrew, thank you so much. I'm just cautious about the time. So before we finish, I just want to make the announcement for next week. So next week, it's already October next week, guys. Daylight saving as well. Don't forget, if you're in Melbourne, you need to change your time this weekend. So 5:30 p.m. next Wednesday, 4th of October, we're going to talk with Anton and Trent, and we're going to talk about DevOps career progressions, roles, and opportunities. So obviously, important topic for those who want to build their career in DevOps. So make sure if it's some direction you want to go, you tune in next Wednesday, 4th of October. And Andrew, it's time also for the giveaway. So our usual giveaway, it's half an hour virtual coffee chat with you. So while I'm announcing some next events, please look through the comments and let me know who's the winner. And also, while you're doing that, there's a few comments there. One sec. Who else is there? Dan is saying, first thing, want to build trust with leadership, think what's matter to leadership. There you go. Yep. So Andrew, do you know who's the winner of the virtual coffee chat?
Absolutely. I always reward people that ask thoughtful and curious questions. So Nimisha is asking the most thoughtful and curious questions.
Nimisha, please make sure to add me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest way to connect. So we'll make sure we organize the virtual coffee chat with you and Andrew. I hope that your name, spells the same on YouTube as on LinkedIn, so I will be able to find you easily. Andrew, and what's the best ways to connect with you?
Best way is LinkedIn itself. If you reach out on LinkedIn and put a message that you saw this stream, because I get a lot of people that reach out to me wanting to do business. So I prioritize connecting with people that I've done something with. So yeah, make sure you just put that you've were a part of this stream.
And also, if you want to check out more about Andrew's current business, that's Andrew's website just on the screen right now. And Nimisha saying, yes, thank you. Perfect. So we'll definitely can connect on LinkedIn easily. Thank you, guys. Dan is saying, thank you. And Andrew, just to finish this stream, I know we checked a few quotes here and there, but I guess to finish this stream tonight, can you please share with us, maybe if you have some favorite inspirational quote, or maybe just a statement that you live by? So anything that I guess pops in your mind and you think about the inspirational quote.
Sure. First, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me and having me on here. It's been a real pleasure. The first thing that came to my mind is something from another Brené Brown book, where I can't remember where she got it from, but I know it was an Atlas of the Heart, and it is the definition of boundaries, which is the distance that I can love you and me simultaneously. And I've loved that because anytime that I've been too close to somebody that's taking too much, then I've gone, that's right, let me have a little bit more distance and see how that goes. And it's worked for me. So that's the one I love.
Yeah, and I think it's coming back to what we talk about for last 54 minutes. It's about understanding that other person and understand that distance that the most comfortable for them. And that's probably that ideal distance where you can build the most trust with them.
Yeah, sometimes the distance is up close and other times it's really far away. I've known a few people that the distance is nowhere near me.
Yeah, so here we go, guys. Understanding other people, understanding their boundaries, understanding your boundaries, and bringing it all together. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much, everyone who's listened to us tonight. Thank you for participation. Nimisha will be in touch on LinkedIn, and I'll see everyone next Wednesday at 5:30.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.